Joining us now is one of my favorite congressmen, and that's Congressman Rob Wittman. You know, ever since I've had the opportunity to get to know Rob, not only does he make himself available to the public, but he is the most straightforward leader that has an ear for his constituents. He serves Virginians and is just a great guy that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. He's going to be joining us now. He served on the Montrose Town Council from 86 to 96. He was the mayor of the town of Montrose from 1992 to 1996. He has done great things throughout his congressional district, and he also served in the Virginia House of Delegates. He served our country. He's a veteran. Thank you so much for joining us, Rob. Good morning.
Good morning, Martha. How are you this morning?
All is well here. We're thrilled to have you on. I know you are on the Committee on Armed Services and the Committee on Natural Resources. Was hoping you could tell us about what you're working on right now.
Absolutely, Martha. Well, you know, the big thing for our nation is getting our military properly funded. So the big thing coming before Congress now is to get our military not just in the right direction, which has recently happened with the National Defense Authorization Act, which passed out of the House a week ago, just this week passed out of the Senate, so it's on its way to the President's desk. That's the policy about how our nation's military function is going to occur in the next year. The next big step is to make sure that we get it funded. And that's one of the keys. A lot of debate today about what happens with appropriations bills, you know, border security, how do you include those things in there, getting all those things done. And we have to do both. You know, I want to make sure we get border security funded, we fix issues with the immigration system, and do those things while at the same time getting the government funded. Those are absolutely critical. And Congress has to do those things, and I think that we can do both. I think that we can fulfill our responsibility, Martha, to get the government funded, and we can do that without having to face a shutdown. But we also have an obligation to make sure we properly fund border security. So
That's
I think
right.
the president's right in making sure that Congress does that job, making sure that we do it on time before the end of the fiscal year. Because remember, all these things are interrelated. We want to make sure that we're funding our nation's military, funding the care for our veterans, you know, funding those critical aspects of government that we all know we have an obligation to do, while at the same time securing our borders through proper funding for border security. So those things I think are critical. Hey, I wanted to talk about one thing earlier on too. You talked about me being a veteran. Listen, I trained for the military, but I never had a chance to serve. So
my apologies.
I am eternally grateful to our veterans, but I did not serve. So,
my apologies. You know, I had
okay.
some remarks where it said Army, Corps of Cadets and Army ROTC,
Yeah.
and it just popped out. So I apologize.
Listen,
for that.
I did that training. I was in junior ROTC,
Yeah.
Army ROTC, but never had a chance to serve. But I enjoyed my training, enjoyed all the realm of that. My father served; he was an Army veteran. My uncle served; he was a Navy veteran. But I never got to serve. But I did train up for it, so I got the benefits of going through all that great
Well,
training.
I know you're a huge advocate and supporter of our veterans and do everything you can to support them. I just got a text asking me to ask you if you think we will have a government shutdown.
I don't think so. I mean, the president I know is pushing to get funding for the border wall, which I think people look at it and it's just you know, I think logical to say yes, we have to secure our border. We know that it's not secure the way it is right now. So funding for the border wall, funding for additional border patrol agents, funding for other methods of technology, whether it's in the air or on the ground, to make sure that we are sensing whether people come across, making sure we're securing the border. I mean, that's an obligation of our government to do that. I do believe that we can get that done and do it without having to shut the government down. I think that you can accomplish both. Now, you know, there's always in Washington this political high-stakes game back and forth. But if you look historically, Martha, there's not been a circumstance where whoever has forced the government to shut down where there's actually been a benefit of that. I think the American people look at us and go, you guys need to get your job done, or you folks in Washington need to get the job done. That's what we have to do. I think people want us to secure the border, but I also think they say, hey, we're tired of this back and forth. You have a job to do. It should be pretty obvious what we want you to do. That is the electorate, and we want you to get it done. So I don't think there's any advantage to shutting the government down. We've certainly seen historically when those things have happened, and again, when those things have happened, I have tried to make sure that we are looking for solutions, not ways to reach loggerheads and not get things done. But we have an obligation to fund this nation's operations of government, our military, our veterans, our law enforcement, at the same time making sure that we're providing for this nation's security. So I do think that we can do both. Sometimes there's a lot of division in Washington, and it appears as though it's sometimes difficult to reach that, but I think that there has to be a will on both sides of the aisle in order to get this done. And I think ultimately it will get done. I know the president feels passionately about it. That's why he's pushing and saying, "Hey, let's get this done."
That's right.
But I don't think we have to get to a shutdown in order to get this done.
Great, and I have another question here for you as well that was just texted in. Wants to know, does Congressman Wittman support voter ID that Trump has called for?
I think it's just logical that in all the other elements of what we have to do in our daily lives, Martha, if you have to go cash a check, you got to present an ID. We want to make sure that we are maintaining the integrity of our voting system. To me, requiring people to identify themselves to go vote is just an element of keeping the integrity of our voting system. So, yes, I'm in favor of making sure that we have a strong voter ID and require that folks identify themselves to go vote. It's required in almost any other sector of what we do as citizens, whether it's in private transactions with banks, whether it's to board an aircraft. I mean, just those things where your personal identity is key for security. We do that. This is an element where it's in order to maintain and to improve the integrity of our voting system. Yes, you should be required to identify yourself, positively identify yourself to go vote.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, Rob. And here we have a president where we have 4.1 GDP growth, consumer confidence is at an all-time high, Black and Hispanic unemployment is at all-time lows. Energy dominance for our nation, our national security. I mean, this is a president that has done more than any president has in this short period of time that he's been in office. And it's almost as though no matter what he does, there's he's criticized, even though he's done so much for our great nation. There's hope and opportunity, jobs. What do you say about that? This heightened level of animosity and hatred to a leader, a president that has done so much for America.
Well, there is, Martha. As I travel around the district and I talk to folks, I was just at the Virginia Ag Expo yesterday talking to farmers and folks from across, not just the 1st District, but across the state. And, the question I asked them was, how do you feel things are going, even in addition to the back and forth the president is having with other nations concerning tariffs. And the farmers there, almost to a person, were saying, hey, listen, we are positive about the economy. We're glad that the president is standing up to nations like China, nations that steal our technology, nations that compete unfairly with us. And we want to make sure that we're on a level playing field. We understand, too, that when I say we, the farmers talking to me, understand that, China is a purchaser of soybeans, so it does have an effect on them. But they say, hey, listen, we want the president to be fighting because we know in the long term that it's best for the United States for us to have a strong, not just a strong economy, but to eliminate these trade deficits that do create an imbalance. And they look at what they're dealing with as soybeans and corn, and they would like to have a deal to make sure that they can get proper compensation for the crops that they raise, but at the same time, they want this country to fight for fairness in the marketplace, and it's just not there. So fighting for that, I think, in the long term, to get a deal with China, and as we've seen recently with the European Union,
that's right,
who in that agreement agreed to buy U.S. soybeans. So I think things are moving in the right direction. As you said, economy percolating along, the president really forcing the issue on getting good, fair trade agreements with countries like Canada and Mexico and the European Union and ultimately China. Those things have to happen, and I think people want our president to be fighting for us, and they see the things that he's done. I mean, look at where we are, Martha, not just with our economy, as you said, unemployment at all-time lows in all sectors of society.
That's right.
Among women, among Hispanics, among African Americans, good things. National security. I mean, look at what happened the other day. How compelling is it to see Vice President Pence do the distinguished transfer of the remains of American warriors who now their remains came back to the United States from North Korea. I mean, that was all due to the president pushing the issue. And listen, we've got a long ways to go to make sure that we get North Korea doing the things that it needs to do. But things are moving in the right direction there. So I think with where we are in national security, where we are with our economy, and where the president wants us to be with homeland security, to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect the United States and make sure that we, are stemming the flow of drugs on the border and making sure that there's security with people that come into the United States, are just things that, the everyday citizen says, hey, these are things that have to happen. They look at what's there and what's occurred, the improvements. Those are all good things. And as you talk about, unfortunately, there's, the divisions there about, how governance takes place there in Congress. There are a lot of things that should be agreement across the board. Should be easy things to get
That's
done.
Right.
At least places like our national security. I will say this: our national security is one of those places where there's still just large scale bipartisanship. Look at the percentages of those bills passed both in the House and the Senate. That's the National Defense Authorization Act. Why can't we do the same thing, Martha, with Homeland Security?
That's right.
All those things are about protecting United States citizens, whether it's from threats abroad or whether it's through threats that come across the border. Why wouldn't there be the same bipartisanship? And there's strong bipartisanship for national security. We should have the same bipartisanship for Homeland Security and treating people fairly and equally, and which is the tenet of our nation. And in doing that, I think you have to say that border security is part of that. So to me, it just makes sense. There doesn't have to be this division. There is, but there doesn't have to be. So.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, here we have a situation where, we're looking at representatives from the United States and Mexico that are closer than ever to an updated version of NAFTA. I mean, these are things that I never thought I would witness. Officials from the U.S. and the EU have announced future talks to lower trade barriers. The EU also committed to purchase more American soybeans and natural gas. I mean, this is incredible. And, in terms of leveling the playing field, it's this president, our president, Donald J. Trump, is making America businesses and workers first. And you mentioned Canada. The entry for Canada on dairy, 270%. What does that do to our American dairy producers? So, I'm with you on this. I think that our president is negotiating a better deal for our farmers and our manufacturers. He's been criticized mercilessly on tariffs, on his position on tariffs and trade, but I truly believe that we are going to see a level playing field, making America workers first. And our economy is booming, and there's so much hope and real sense of enthusiasm for what lies ahead in the next weeks, months, and this administration. And I know you're seeing that too. We had earlier on the show, we were talking about how the ridicule and the heightened level of animosity is manifesting itself towards our members of Congress, towards our GOP members of Congress. Have you personally experienced that?
Well, Martha, obviously there are lots of differences of opinion there throughout the district, and we make sure that we are accessible to talk to people. We do a lot of communications back and forth, and yes, I mean, there are some people that have very, very different thoughts, very different opinions. I want to make sure that we are encouraging everybody to communicate with us. I think transparency and accountability are absolutely key.
Yes.
And in fact, I'm really honored. It's not me; it's our staff. We were actually honored recently with a Democracy Award from the Congressional Management Foundation, which is a nonpartisan group in Washington that looks at how Congress operates, helps members and the things that they do. And we actually won the award. They award both a Democrat and Republican of all 535 members of Congress. We won the Democracy Award for being the most transparent and accountable office there in Washington. So when you do that, I think you encourage folks of all different viewpoints to engage. And we've had good engagements. We've had some that where there's been some want for people to be confrontational about it. We try to make sure that it's not confrontational. We tell folks that our job is to hear from everybody, to take their thoughts and ideas and the decisions that we make. So I've seen people that are passionate in how they express their ideas. All my interactions with folks have been ones where it hasn't accelerated to a point where there is an endangerment of myself or my staff, which speaks a lot to the folks in the first district, where there's again very, very different viewpoints, all expressed very passionately, but done so in a way that's respectful and that doesn't create a situation where it boils down to there being a threatening situation. So,
well, your office we haven't had that experience, and not to say that there isn't a potential out there. Sure.
We look very carefully to make sure that we are trying to encourage good, productive conversations, and also too looking out, especially for the safety of our staff. But we haven't had experiences where people have gotten to the point of being threatened. So.
Right. Well, I mean, your office is just so open and transparent and available to the public, and it's just you have great folks that are in your office. You are so open and transparent to the public and always available. Right now what we're seeing are Democrats and quote never Trump Republicans really making every excuse in the book to spin Trump's inspired economic growth as bad. Right? I mean, we're seeing it all the time. They accuse Trump supporters of gaslighting the news all the time. What are your thoughts about that? And how are you responding to that?
Well, listen, I think this economy, if you look at it, is helping everybody. And
right.
If you look at it, both from what's happening with companies, small companies are growing, their bottom lines are growing bigger, their employees are getting more, not only in their paychecks based on lower taxes, but also companies sharing the proceeds of this increased business with their employees. So as we travel the district and talk to folks, all of these elements of what we're seeing and hearing from businesses are positive. They look at this in a way that for them inspires them to take a risk and grow. And Martha, I don't think it's just the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I think the tax cuts were great, but I think there's a level of optimism out there that we haven't seen in a while. The optimism goes to how people see the federal government. I think prior to that time, they were worried about what regulation is going to come next. What am I going to be faced with as far as a cost or an uncertainty? So people had a tendency to just kind of hunker down and say, "Well, I'm not going to take any risk or put any money out there because I'm not sure what's going to happen." Today, I think with what the president's done in his 2-for-1 rule, that is, for any new regulation, you have to take 2 off the books, has created a new sense of optimism with folks to say, "Hey, listen,
Yes.
We're not saying no regulation, but we're saying smart regulation. Let's not get out there and just continually regulate. And that certainty for businesses, as I've spoken to them, is one of the big motivators for them to say, hey, we like what we see in the future. We like that there's a balance in the federal government. We like that we don't feel like we're going to be threatened by continual regulation. I think that, Martha, has as much to do with what we're seeing with the economy as the tax cuts. And listen, I think the tax cuts were a big infusion of dollars that went back into the economy, both in people's pocketbooks and in businesses. But the thing I hear most often from businesses is just liking the current regulatory environment where there's some certainty for them, where they don't have to look over their shoulder and think, gosh, what new regulation is going to come out next week that's going to impact my business.
And actually, isn't it more than for every one new regulation, two are removed? Hasn't it on average been something like, I want to say 20 regulations have been removed for every new one, or is that an exaggerated number?
Well, no. Actually, there are two elements of it. There are, through the Congressional Review Act, the House and the Senate has actually repealed 24 different sets of regulations. So that's one set of efforts that have gone on from the congressional side. But on the administration side, that is through the executive branch, what they have done is through their 2-for-1 requirement have actually reduced regulations, because as agencies come out with new regulations, they have to take old ones off the books, or ones that they don't use anymore off the books, which actually simplifies government and creates more certainty for folks. So there's been a twofold benefit, both in what Congress has done under the Congressional Review Act and what the administration is doing in their 2-for-1 rule.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for all you do. We are making America first, and I feel so blessed to be living in these extraordinary times. And I just want to thank you for everything you do. How can our listeners get in touch with you and support you?
Well, listen, they can give us their thoughts and ideas. They can go to our website, which is www.Wittman. That's WITTMAN.house.gov. They can call us at our Washington office, which is 202-225-4261. Please let us know your thoughts and ideas on things. You can go to our website, connect with our Facebook page. We do Twitter, we do Instagram, so we try to contact folks on every different level. So please come there and visit us. Give us your thoughts and ideas. We also have, Martha, a weekly e-newsletter that we send out, gives people a Washington update. It's good information there. We don't share your email address or any of your information with anybody else. It's just with us. You can unsubscribe anytime that you want, but it's another way for us to keep folks plugged in so they know what's going on in Washington. And, Martha, in each one of those newsletters that goes out, we actually have a survey in there. And it's a survey question about an issue of the week, whatever the big issue is of the week. And it's not just a yes or no answer. We ask people for the details of their feedback, and we compile those, and I take a look at it so I get, again, that immediate idea about what people are thinking and what they want us to be doing in Washington. So please, to your listeners, join us. Give us your thoughts and ideas. Subscribe to a weekly e-newsletter. Go to our website and let us know your thoughts and ideas about things.
I want that newsletter. That comes out every week?
Comes out every week, yes. You can sign up on our subscription, and it comes out every week, and you can unsubscribe whenever you want. You just go to our website. There's a little panel there where you can just put your email address in and subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Congressman Rob Wittman, for being on the show, and we look forward to hearing from you again next week. Sounds great. Thanks, Martha. Thank you.